house of Saul and the house of David lasted a long time. David grew stronger and stronger, while the house of Saul grew weaker and weaker. Sons were born to David in Hebron. His firstborn was Amnon, the son of Ahinoam of Jezreel. His second, Chileab, the son of Abigail, the widow of Nabal of Carmel. The third, Absalom, the son of Maacah, daughter of Talmai, king of Geshur. The fourth, Adonijah, the son of Higgith. The fifth, Shephatiah, the son of Abital. And the sixth, Ithream, the son of David's wife, Eglah.
It's kind of like when you watch the commercials and all the medicines that kind of like.
Born to David in Hebron. During the war between the house of Saul and the house of David, in the house of Saul. Now Saul had a concubine named Rizpah, daughter of Ai, and Ishbosheth said to Abner, "Why do you sleep with my father's concubine?" Abner was very angry because of what Ishbosheth had said. So he answered, Am I a dog's head on Judah's side? This very day I am loyal to the house of your father Saul and to his family and friends. I haven't handed you over to David, yet now you accuse me of an offense involving this woman? May God deal with Abner, be it ever so severely, if I do not do for David what the Lord promised him on oath, and transfer the kingdom from the house of Saul, and establish David's throne over Israel and Judah from Dan to Beersheba. Ishbosheth did not dare to say another word to Abner, because he was afraid of him. Then Abner sent messengers on his behalf to say to David, Whose land is it? Make an agreement with me, and I will help you bring all Israel over to you. Good, said David, I will make an agreement with you, but I demand one thing of you. Do not come into my presence unless you bring Michal, daughter of Saul, when you come to see me. Then David sent messengers to Ishbosheth, son of Saul, demanding, Give me my wife Michal, whom I betrothed to myself for the price of 100 Philistine foreskins. So Ishbosheth gave orders and had her taken away from her husband, Paltiel, son of Laish. Her husband, however, went with her, weeping behind her all the way to Bahurim. Then Abner said to him, Go back home. So he went back. Abner conferred with the elders of Israel and said, For some time you have wanted to make David your king. Now do it, for the Lord promised David, By my servant David I will rescue my people Israel from the hand of the Philistines, and from the hand of all their enemies. Abner also spoke to the Benjamites in person. Then he went to Hebron to tell David everything that Israel and the whole tribe of Benjamin wanted to do. When Abner, who had 20 men with him, came to David at Hebron, David prepared a feast for him and his men. Then Abner said to David, Let me go at once and assemble all Israel for my lord the king, so that they may make a covenant with you, and that you may rule over all that your heart desires. So David sent Abner away, and he went in peace. Just then David's men and Joab returned from a raid and brought with them a great deal of plunder. But Abner was no longer with David in Hebron, because David had sent him away, and he had gone in peace. When Joab and all the soldiers with him arrived, he was told that Abner, son of Ner, had come to the king, and that the king had sent him away, and that he had gone in peace. So Joab went to the king and said, What have you done? Look, Abner came to you. Why did you let him go? Now he is gone. You know Abner, son of Ner. He came to deceive you and observe your movements and find out everything you're doing. Joab then left David and sent messengers after Abner, and they brought him back from the cistern at Sirah. But David did not know it. Now when Abner returned to Hebron, Joab took him aside into an inner chamber, as if to speak with him privately. And there, to avenge the blood of his brother Asahel, Joab stabbed him in the stomach, and he died. Later, when David heard about this, he said, I and my kingdom are forever innocent before the Lord concerning the blood of Abner, son of Ner. May his blood fall on the head of Joab and on his whole family. May Joab's family never be without someone who has a running sore or leprosy, or who leans on a crutch, or who falls by the sword, or who lacks food. Joab and his brother Abishai murdered Abner because he had killed their brother Asahel in the battle at Gibeon. Then David said to Joab and to all the people with him, Tear your clothes and put on sackcloth and walk in mourning in front of Abner. King David himself walked behind the bier. They buried Abner in Hebron, and the king wept aloud at Abner's tomb. All the people wept also. the king sang this lament for Abner. Should Abner have died as the lawless die? Your hands were not bound, your feet were not fettered. You fell as one falls before the wicked. And all the people wept over him again. Then they all came and urged David to eat something while it was still day. But David took an oath, saying, May God deal with me, be it ever so severely, if I taste bread or anything else before the sun sets. All the people took note and were pleased. Indeed, everything the king did pleased them. So on that day, all the people there and all Israel knew that the king had no part in the murder of Abner, son of Ner. Then the king said to his men, Do you not realize that a commander and a great man has fallen in Israel this day? And today, though I am anointed king, I am weak, and these sons of Zeruiah are too strong for me. May the Lord repay the evildoer according to his evil deeds.
Thank you. Excellent job, as always. Now, you may have started chapter 3 and gone, whoa, 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 time out, huh? Look at all these people that David has had children with.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of them don't sound like his wives. And it goes on and on. So, for you, you're welcome. I made a list. These are all the sons of David that we know about that are mentioned in the Bible. You can take a look if you want to and pass that around, but it's kind of helpful because it kind of illustrates that, David got around. And it kind of illustrates, illuminates a little bit of the chaos that's about to ensue towards the end of 2 Samuel and beginning of 1 Kings. Because when you do this kind of thing, you create a lot of chaos in the succession of your line, in which there's going to be a lot of people who are kind of fighting. and Laura going through, kind of the history of medieval England, that this thing happens, right? Everyone is kind of saying that they have a claim to the throne. You'll see Solomon is pretty far down on that list, folks. He's not the firstborn of David by any stretch. Solomon won't be born for years. What do you think of that? What does that tell you?
Are you saying Abner was David's son? You're not
No,
saying-
Abner is not David's son.
I didn't think
No,
so.
No,
I mean,
Amnon.
God,
not Abner. What's that?
God uses all people.
Yep.
They're human.
Mhm.
But I do think, and I don't know what the answer is, I do think people get caught up, if they don't study the Bible or don't understand what the Bible is about, love story,
Yeah.
posted that, and, that they're like, well, look, I don't know, it must be okay to have multiple wives. And they get caught up on that thinking, and then throw the Bible out because they think that the people are holy, righteous, whatever, and they're not.
I saw a thing in the news recently again. I saw a thing in the news because I was searching for something else and a news story popped up, and I'm like, don't do that to me. I don't read the news. I know a lot about the universe and how it works. I don't need the news to tell me how the universe works, folks. You don't need the news to tell you how to think. However, because they slipped it in and they knew that what they were doing when I was looking for something else, I was researching stuff about Leviticus and about the mandate for Jubilee. And of course, if you know about Leviticus and you know about Jubilee, you know that after 49 years, it was mandated by God that all Israelites were supposed to forgive debts of those of fellow Israelites. And if you had land that didn't belong to you because someone was in debt, and you got their land out of it, you had to give it back. So basically, all debt is forgiven. And of course, I saw this article, and it was from a very prominent news organization that said, well, it's okay in Leviticus that they absolve debt. So the government of the United States should just absolve all debts for all people this year and just start over. And I was thinking to myself, no matter what you think about politics for a moment, that is a perfect example of someone who knows nothing of the Holy Scriptures. Having someone tell them, oh, have you ever heard of Jubilee? Oh, really? Where's that? I've never heard of that before. And using a site completely out of context to justify their political beliefs. Folks, this has happened since the beginning of time, that people will take out of context pieces of the Holy Scriptures and use them for their own corrupt agenda. You're absolutely right, Angela. This is exactly what happens. Someone may turn to 2 Samuel 3. Now, why they would turn to it, and, maybe they're stuck in a hotel room and the power goes out and there's the Gideon Bible. Well, not that because that's the New Testament, but they find something else in there and they read 2 Samuel. Oh, look, this guy David, who everyone thinks is so great, had all these, children from all these different women. It must be okay. What is the danger of doing that? What is the danger of doing that?
Well, if you look at Deuteronomy 17, it says how the king should behave. You're going to choose a king. I don't want you to have a king, but if you do have a king, he says, it has to be an Israelite. They must not have too many horses. You can't go to Egypt for horses, because we said don't go back to Egypt. You must not have too many wives. You must not have too much silver and gold. So there's things that God has already said a king should do, and if you look at all the kings of Israel, basically if you look at from Deuteronomy 17, they break every single thing that God says a king should be.
Hey,
Yep. David had a lot of wives, but God told them in Deuteronomy, do not have too many wives as if you're the king.
Hey, guess what? Even in the first century, people were taking the Old Testament out of context. The perfect example of this is Jesus himself. When the Pharisees came to Jesus and asked, well, if a woman is divorced 7 times and the men and each men of those men die and that woman goes to heaven, whose wife is she? And Jesus, basically doing the spiritual slap on all their faces, says, have you not read the Holy Scriptures? Where it says that there will be no marriage between a man and a woman in heaven. And also, they get him on the thing about, well, Moses said that you could have a certificate of divorce. Jesus says very clearly there, you're taking the Old Testament out of context. He says, God allowed Moses to give a certificate of divorce because you are corrupt. It is not God's fulfilled wish that anyone ever gets divorced. But he, out of his grace, allowed it to happen because he knew how much chaos there would be if he didn't. God is very clear here. He has expectations for your life. He doesn't want you to do these things. He did not want David to have 47 different concubines, 11 different wives, and 100 different children. That was not his plan. And even when he does have something in Deuteronomy that says you should not have too many wives, what he's really saying is you shouldn't have more than one wife. You shouldn't. And what happens when you do? Horrible things happen. Now again, I kind of get back off my soapbox and say, read the Bible. Don't take individual sentences out of context. Read the entirety of the whole thing. My brother-in-law, shout out to him, he's talking about someone in his church, who keeps going back on this Calvinist thing about, Romans 8 says that we're all predestined to either go to heaven or go to hell, so it doesn't matter what we do. And that is dead wrong, folks, dead wrong. If you read the entire Bible, Calvinism is completely wrong. It is your choice, and yet that is a perfect example of someone just kind of picking and choosing, I'm going to say, Romans 8. So I don't really have to evangelize, and I don't have to really try hard. God's going to decide anyway. Bullcrap. Okay, off my soapbox.
Perspective for me, the previous, I can't find it here, but it said that David loved Jonathan more than he loved women. And then I read all that and I'm like, man, he loved Jonathan a lot because he obviously...
Yes.
I mean, we talk about David and Jonathan's relationship a lot, and I kind of go, how much do we really know? But then when we see a statement like that, and then he's got 19 sons with, he obviously loved women, no doubt about it.
Well, we never see that David went to God saying, should I have more than one wife?
Why do we not go to God for certain things?
We don't want the answer.
That's exactly it. Because we know the answer, folks.
He's like, I'm the king, I can get whatever I want.
That's it. I'm the king.
Well, even though when he took that guy's wife that I had killed,
Yeah.
and he took his wife, God said if he'd have wanted more, he would have given it to him.
And what happened?
Their boy died.
There's repercussions, folks, for your actions, and it's not God being mean. God is saying, I have rules because this is what's best for you.
And that's when he said he would go to his son because his son wouldn't come to him. He would go to his son.
It's kind of amazing because I do believe, Lorna, what you're getting at is true, that God is gracious. And if you go to him and seek his counsel, look what happens here. a lot of the time, a godly person will go to God and ask them for something. And you could even look at like Moses, where the first answer may not be what Moses wanted, but Moses kept up. He's like, I have to make my case here. Don't destroy the Israelites. They're flawed, but they're your people, and they love you, and they have a hard time showing it, and God relented. God changed his mind. I think it's a good point, Lorna, that he is flexible. You know, he is flexible.
There's something else in this. I'm going a whole different direction here.
Yeah.
You know, what's playing out with Abner and Joab, and
Yeah.
Abner, who really probably has the power in Israel, but
Yeah.
he can see the writing on the wall,
Mm-hmm.
and now's the time to make amends with David.
Yep.
You know, before it's too late
Yeah.
and he comes and kills me, I better join forces.
Yep.
But then you've got Joab, who's got a grudge or
Yeah.
revenge on his mind
Yep.
since the death of his brother. All the while, Joab is a really powerful, successful military leader that David needs. So David can't control Joab. Joab's got a strong personality, and he kind of does
Yep.
what he wants,
Yep.
but he's loyal to David. Here you've got Abner coming to David, trying to bring everybody together, and stupid Joab goes off on his personal
Hothead.
revenge.
Yep.
And now you've got the whole upheaval within the two countries joining together again.
I think it's a good point, Steve, and probably what most of us don't understand, which is when you have to lead large groups of people who all are human beings, who think for themselves, they have free will, they're not remote-controlled robots. It's a game you play, and a lot of us don't even have that context because we don't have to deal with this kind of thing generally. I mean, if you lead a team, or you're a coach on a baseball team or something, you probably have some kind of context, but it's a delicate balance, and I think you're right. David is trying to find the right balance here between the people who he knows are going to be effective in his government for the next 40 years and trying to do what's right as well, trying to set a good example. Now you can see here with the Amalekite, he made a real big example. Don't attack the Lord's anointed, right? Don't take unilateral action, but at some level, he does need Joab, and he needed Abner too. And look how that happened. So
The whole thing with Abner, like, it's very weird. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, was he having sex with the slave woman in order to like make himself seem more legit and as like maybe he should take over, or like. I think that's why Ishbosheth asked him about it, because he's like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, is he trying to position himself as a way he could become king? So I think he was legit in asking it, but then, Abner had way too much. I think he didn't realize, like, oh wait, this was gonna turn Abner, like, against him,
I think Abner had the power,
Yeah.
and he just, taking this concubine was his way of kind of thumbing his nose at this king, like, you wimpy little figurehead, I'm the guy in charge.
That's exactly it. We'll go back all the way to Genesis. Who is Jacob's oldest son?
Esau.
Reuben.
Oh, is it-
Remember what Reuben did to his father's
Yeah.
wife/concubine. He tried to do exactly what I think Abner was trying to do here. Now, I think you're right, Steve, that Abner probably saw this other guy as like such a complete weak figurehead. He wasn't even worth like considering. But there is a precedent in the Old Testament for someone who is the presumed kind of leader to come next, horning in on the current leader's stuff, if you want to call it that, or it was property. Don't get me wrong. I'm not being a misogynist here, but I think he is trying to horn in on what was the other guys to say, I'm the guy, I'm the leader here, and look how bad it turned out for Reuben.
Well, and then I think Absalom's gonna try it in a little bit.
Absolutely. Look at our list here. We've got like 3 or 4 folks here who are going to try and take charge, try and take it away from David.
But I mean, by sleeping with David's concubine,
Oh,
or
sure,
sleeping
sure.
with David's property or whatever, yeah.
Right.
that's gonna
So
happen.
that's a historical thing, right? That's something that maybe today we don't see so much in the West, but it does happen. Okay.
I sort of feel sorry for Michelle, but more so her husband. I mean,
Yeah.
the poor guy's crying. He doesn't want to give up his wife. And then as far as we know, David doesn't have anything to do with her really
Yeah.
for the rest. I mean, and she hates him.
Well, and you notice that no son is attributed to her, correct?
Not that I know of. Now, we have like a list of, I don't know, maybe a dozen or so people that we're not really sure. I'm not really sure who the mother was. Maybe he didn't either. But yeah, not really stated.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Also found it interesting that David chose to curse Joab and his family over just eliminating and
Yes.
wiping them out for the murder of the other general.
Uh-huh. It's a good point. I made it earlier. It's almost like they're too important to kill.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because he needed a military leader,
Yeah.
and if he did that, then his two strongest military leaders are dead.
Exactly.
Yeah, Joab went and killed the one good guy,
Mhm.
good one, so now you're just left with only.
Mhm.
There's almost a sense of that David somehow is getting all these other people to do all his dirty work. Like, it kind of doesn't seem like dirty work at the time, but ultimately it really was. I mean,
Right.
because Abner was trying to, I don't know, rule the north, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Effectively was doing that. Exactly. Have someone else do it. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know if David had some ulterior motives or if it was just convenient for him. But when he killed the Amalekite, declaring that, how dare you kill God's anointed one, there's a little bit of benefit to him by taking such a hard line when you're the next anointed one. It's like,
Let this be known, this should never happen. That's exactly it. Big public statement. Well, it's interesting because, as far as I know, this funeral of Abner is the longest and most detailed in the entire Old Testament. For that guy, right? So that says something. There's a lament and everything.
Well, I just find it interesting too that David had them go before the casket,
Mm.
in a sign of humiliation. That,
Like that.
it's like, this is what I'm going to do to you and your family if you, go against me.
So David's not dumb. I mean, David makes a lot of bad choices. He's also brilliant in other ways.
Yes.
He's also brilliant.
Well, because this could turn, like, obviously, the people of Israel love Abner. They
Yep.
think he's great,
Mhm.
And then if it comes around that, David ordered the killing of Abner, he's going to be
He's in
put
big
in
trouble.
a very bad way. So he makes it very clear, like, I had nothing to do with it. Like, they all believe him. It says all of the people understood that he did not order it. Like, he played it real smart.
I think it was Angela that made the comment earlier about people who don't really know the Bible, and maybe I'll extend that to, what we teach our kids in Sunday school. How many kids in Sunday school are taught chapter 3 in 2 Samuel? Now, how many probably should at some point? I would argue that probably by the time they're in junior, senior high, we need to start telling them about the real truth of the Old Testament. Why? Because we need to prepare them and tell them what is actually happening here before they hear it from someone else that doesn't have any idea what this stuff means. It's super, super important that we give our children the complete picture of the Bible so that when they go out into the big, scary world and they're confronted with people that know nothing of the Holy Scriptures, that pick and choose what they want, and someone says, the Old Testament's all about misogyny and genocide, and, David was a rapist, and Abraham was a sex trafficker, that our children can respond to that and say, no, you're dead wrong about all of that. You don't understand what you're talking about. There is a lot more going on here.
And also to the point that they're human beings. And so I think
Yes.
sometimes we put
Yes.
these people on a pedestal and our kids think,
You're a great hero of the
you
Old
grow
Testament.
up thinking, well, I could never be
They-
like that. So you can't relate to them at all. And then when you really see them as humans, you're like, well, God could use me because I am like them, I could have
Mhm.
moments of greatness.
Now
too,
they're
just like
relatable,
they did,
Laura.
right?
Yeah.
All of the heroes of the Old Testament are flawed. If you made this stuff up, why would you include that? Why would you include David's, philandering? you would just say they were all the daughter of, I don't know, Michelle, because that was his first wife. Why would you say all of this? The point here, folks, is this. God has us in here for a reason. Absolutely 100%. He wants you to know that you can be a hero, just like all of the, long dead people that are written about in the Holy Scriptures. Why? Because God can take something that's flawed and make something beautiful out of it.
And that's the difference with David, is he does go to God.
Yeah.
He's flawed and he does wrong things, and maybe you think he's doing some of these things selfishly, but they're all part of being a good leader as well, and put him in the right position where God, was also wanted him. It was crafty.
I love that. Love that.
But yeah, he continues to go to God, and
Yeah, I love that.
that's what we all need to do.
It's so important, and I'll be the first to admit that I have serious flaws. Oh my goodness gracious. I think what I try and do is seek God's input in my life and pray a lot, that, and listen. Again, I want to, read your Bible every day, pray every day, and listen to God every day. Spend a few moments not saying anything and listening to what you think God is telling you. It's a two-way street. If you do that, I do believe He will bless you, and He will tell you, whether you want to hear it or not, what you should be doing in your life. Okay. Any final thoughts before we wrap up here?
Well, looking at that sheet, where Bathsheba's line actually gets carried through, and it's Solomon, one of her sons, versus all the other wives that David has had. So God still used that, incident where with David sinning, and he still brought forth his will. So, God still used the events that happened in her life to further His kingdom, even though it wasn't what she may have wanted.
So then should we sin more so that God's grace may abound more?
There's
good.
the double-edged sword.
Uh-huh. All right.
I think it just shows that if God has a plan, there's nothing can stop it. Like later on, this guy who tries to, Jeroboam. Solomon tries to kill Jeroboam, and so does Rehoboam. They can't get him because it was God's purpose for him to be king. If a certain thing is God's purpose.
Gamaliel made the same exact comment to the Sanhedrin when they were trying to persecute Christians. He made the comment that, look, if these Christians really are on the side of God and God really is behind this, there is nothing on earth we can do to stop it. But if God is not in favor of these Christians and what they're promoting, then there's no way they're ever going to succeed. So, chill out. Chill out. It's all going to work out. All right, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.